Hey guys, currently I'm en route to Washington, D.C., so I can't be here in person to do my project, but I made a video to explain it. So I have the norms of the 1980s. So I'll start in the top center, I guess. That's a paddle, and back in the 80s, if you were being disruptive in class or if you forgot consecutive homework assignments, or maybe if you were fighting another kid or talked back to a teacher, they could they could hit you with the paddle, usually on the rear end, but typically in the 80s, what would happen would be you would be written up for whatever you were doing that was disruptive, and then the teacher would sign that slip, and then that slip would go home with you, and then your parents would have to sign that slip to say, like, yes, you can paddle my child, or no, you can't paddle my child. So the next one is this little heart one right here. That's for Valentine's Day. What was a little bit different in the 80s than it was today, like for my generation in elementary school, typically we would all get Valentines and we get to make like 30 Valentines for every single kid in our class. In the 80s, it was different. Instead, on Valentine's Day, you would hope to get a Valentine from someone, but a lot of times people didn't. And that's a lot different than today, because today, like, our society and our teachers and principals would never allow that and make sure everyone got a Valentine and made sure no one would feel left out. In the 80s, it was completely different. You could go a Valentine's Day without getting a Valentine in elementary school, and your little 9, 10-year-old self could be crushed. Now, the middle picture, that is very interesting and very different than today. Back in the 80s, parents could like write a slip for a kid, like their own kid, to go to the drugstore, the convenience store to get alcohol, liquor, cigarettes, stuff like that. Today, you obviously can't do that. You need to be of age to buy tobacco or smoking products, and you got to be 21 to buy alcohol. Back then, you didn't need to. You just needed a parent's slip, and like, I don't know, the parents could even write their number, so you could call their parents just to confirm. But yeah, that was very different in the 80s. Another thing, if you look at the bottom middle of the slide, that is a that's a three-person row in a car. So you could have like three people sit in the front row of the car. Because typically, like today, you have your driver's side and your passenger side. Back then, you had your driver's side, passenger side, and your middle side. So like it was very normal to see cars like that and see three people in the front, and like that person would be usually they would be in charge of doing the radio and stuff, and you don't have the dashboard back then that you do today. So yeah, that was something very different in the 80s and very usual. It's very normal just to be going down the road or even driving down the road, just having three people in the front of your car. Bottom left, this is also very interesting. The Cold War started in the 1950s and continued through the Ronald Reagan administration into the 80s. So this fits for normal things in the 80s. It was very normal to hear that you have an atomic, or not an atomic, a nuclear war drill. And when that would happen, students were instructed to go under their desk until further notice. Or some schools actually had bomb shelters outside, so you would get the drill and everyone would go into the bomb shelter. Luckily, no atomic bombs nor nuclear bombs were ever dropped on the United States of America or anywhere else in the world. So these drills were kind of meaningless. But even if an atomic bomb was dropped within a certain radius of these schools, these children going under desks would do absolutely nothing. But it was very normal for kids to be sitting in school and then having to go under their desks as like a drill. Because like today, we have Alice drills or lockdown drills where we prepare for an intruder, and that's in large part because of a lot of school shootings. Back in the 80s, that was non existent. Like, that was never, ever heard of. They never, ever practiced for school shooters, just for the possibility of the Russians dropping an atomic bomb on their city. And then finally, top right, that was one of the biggest things in the 80s, came out in 1981. That was MTV. MTV is similar to the YouTube of our day. It was a 24-hour music and television station where for 24 hours straight it would just consistently and constantly play music videos. Like the first one ever was Video Killed the Radio Star. So that's when MTV got very big. It was also it was very normal too for uh, households in the 80s to have multiple TV sets because MTV was not like a thing for parents. I mean, unless like, I guess under the rarest of situations, but MTV was a kids, teenagers thing. So a lot of times households would have one TV, which was the parents, and they would watch whatever their programs were, and then the kids would all watch MTV and look for the newest music videos. So yeah, that's the norms of the 1980s.